flies here again, so probably get caught as well.
British scientists at the University of Hertfordshire are at the forefront of research into robotic technology. At present, they have 5 European projects they're undertaking. 3 of them are looking specifically at robots that will be designed to be human companions.
What we are investigating is how humans can interact with robots in a natural and acceptable way, and how the robots can learn from humans, how they can be taught. And the general idea is that if you want to interact with a robot, or if you want to have a robot in your home that, you know, maybe assists you in certain tasks but also interacts with you, communicates with you, then it should do this in a way that is not only efficient but also socially acceptable. In other words, you don't want the robot to annoy you or to go on your nerves because it's not respecting your interests or your preferences.
A key element of the work they're undertaking is to teach the robots to interact with humans and to get them to learn how to adapt to different people, as well as pick up important skills that will be useful in situations like the home.
Teaching is a very, very important research topic within most of these projects. It's about the robot learning from people. So the scenario is that the human demonstrates certain tasks or certain skills, and the robot should be able to observe and to learn, and also to generalize, because not all robots have human-like form, so the robot has to be able to translate what it perceives from the human to its own body, so to speak.
The long-term view is that these robots will become commonplace in people's homes to help them with a range of different tasks.
My personal vision is this notion of a personalized companion. So what I have in mind is a robot that can learn, say, this person, you know, wants me to lay a table in this particular way, the other person wants to do it in another way. And robots should be able to learn and to adapt.
A key area they're working on is the robot's interactive features, particularly in terms of its looks. This is more to do with the external features of the robot rather than the inner workings and how that's perceived by people.
Hello there, how are you doing?
We're not particularly concerned with what's going on inside the robot, the actual technologies inside the robot. We're really concerned with how people view robots and how they relate to robots and what their perceptions of robots are.
This research has already found out what different people want in terms of looks from a robot, depending on their personality profile.
Hello there, how are you doing?
We've been looking at a range of different attributes of robots and how people perceive them. We found out that people tend to divide into 2 demographic groups. More outgoing people, more extrovert people tend to prefer more humanoid features on their robots, whereas more introverted characters like the more mechanoid features, you know, a more mechanical robot. And we've also been looking at the relative heights. You can see we have the mechanoid robot is rather small and the humanoid robot is large. And again, more introverted people tend to prefer a smaller robot, more extrovert personalities tend to go for a larger robot. The conjecture is that possibly more extroverted people want a character they can relate to, you know, a more in-your-face sort of robot that's going to be a more cheerful presence, whereas more introverted people who aren't so orientated socially, you know, on social interaction, just prefer an unobtrusive machine, like smart machine that just gets on with the job without actually making a big fuss about it.
At present, robots are generally used in a purely mechanised way, with little human interaction. This type of interactive research is still in its infancy and shows a machine will have to adapt to man.
Most robots to date so far have been in factories where they've been effectively caged away from people and people have been discouraged from interacting with them. These robots are actually designed to work in a human-orientated environment. And to do that, they're going to have to fit in with the ways that human works. If they don't, people are going to feel discomforted, they're not going to appreciate them, no matter how useful they are. If they feel uncomfortable around the robot, then they're going to say, no, I don't want that in my house, I don't want that in my office, I'm not going to work with it. In order for the robot to to be useful, it's got to be able to do useful things. In other words, it's got to have the manipulation capabilities, it's got to have the intelligence to actually work out how to do things, but it's also got to be socially acceptable, and arguably this is equally important. If people don't accept the robot for, no matter how technically capable it is of doing things, then the robot won't be used within a house, it won't be used within an office, it won't be used within a domestic situation.
Another area they're looking at is humanoid robots and teaching them how to do things. They're trying to get the robots to self-imitate and copy what someone is doing and then learn by this technique.
So we're trying to use natural methods to teach robots to do useful things, very early stages at the moment. But one of the things we look at is imitation. Now, imitation is something which is very natural for people to do. But it's very hard for robots to do, because if you think about it, how do I know that my arm here matches your arm there? So we can sidestep that problem slightly by saying, let's try to imitate and try to reach goals by something called self-imitation. And what that means is that a caregiver or a parent, for example, often with young children, will move the child's body, or move the hands and the arms, and effectively both arms are moving together. So my arm and the child's arm are moving in the same way. So the child learns how to move its body in relation to the goal it's trying to achieve.
Once the robot has learnt the first level of imitation, that's built on, with more sophisticated learning adding blocks of knowledge to the robot.
Once you've learned some things, you want to actually build upon what you've learned, and we call that a process called scaffolding. So you scaffold these behaviours together, one on top of the other, till you gain more and more competencies. And this is exactly, again, how children will learn. They go through these stages of learning, and with the help of a more capable peer, they can move forward and go to a higher level of experience. And that's exactly what we're trying to recreate with these robots. One of the main purposes of doing this is to allow the robot to understand what we call grounding, ground its concepts, ground its meaning. If you think from your point of view, round, if you actually hold something, you'd feel its roundness, or you'd see its roundness, or you'd see its colour. And that grounds the meaning, and that allows you to understand that concept of roundness. We're using these techniques to do that, to understand these meanings in a grounded way, and we're hoping then to actually teach the robot what that means in terms of language. So our ultimate aim is to allow the robot actually to talk to us about what it's learnt.
Another area is to teach the robots to play games, and to do so without the use of language. Here it's learning to imitate human action.
In this game, we try to see the interaction between the human and the humanoid through the drumming game and through gestures. We don't want to use speech, but we want to have communication through the drumming and the gestures. The whole game is totally autonomous. So once I make a beating, he will respond to me, but he will not take any external directions from me. And besides, he will smile, he will frown, exactly showing in which behavior, feeling it is in, and it would do it totally autonomously.
They're hoping to apply the methods to develop a robot with the skills of a young child and use a range of non-verbal communication to send and receive information.
Our aim is to build a 2-year-old child-sized robot with the full cognitive and the full physical abilities. And we are a part of the gesture communication package. So we try to achieve the gesture communication. We don't want to use speech, but we want to use simple games with audio or visual feedback and the gestures in the communication.
The University of Hertfordshire has around £4 million funding for these projects. As a world leader in the field of artificial intelligence and human-robotic interaction, the long-term aim is to develop a range of robots that can be taught to learn, communicate and interact with humans, as well as provide companionship to help in different areas of life.